What if I told you that every anxious thought you've ever had, every racing heartbeat, every sleepless night spent worrying about the future or replaying the past, all of it stems from one fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of your own mind? And what if I told you that there's a single silent realization, something you don't have to speak out loud, something you don't have to affirm or repeat to yourself, that can begin to dissolve anxiety at its root? Not manage it, not cope with it, but actually dissolve it. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you goes against everything you've been told about dealing with anxiety, and it might just change your relationship with your own thoughts forever. You know what's interesting? We live in a world that's absolutely obsessed with solutions for anxiety. There are apps, medications, breathing techniques, meditation practices, therapy modalities, and thousands of self-help books, all promising to help you overcome your anxiety. And I'm not saying any of these things are bad or wrong. Many of them help people. But here's what nobody talks about. All of these solutions, every single one of them, operates on a fundamental assumption that anxiety is something you need to fix, manage, or overcome. They all position anxiety as the enemy, as the problem, as something separate from you that needs to be defeated. And that assumption, that very premise, is actually part of what keeps anxiety alive and thriving in your experience. Think about it for a moment. When you're anxious, what's your first instinct? It's to make the anxiety go away, right? You want relief. You want to feel calm. You want to stop the racing thoughts, the tight chest, the sense of impending doom. And so, you reach for a solution. You try to think positive thoughts. You attempt to rationalize your way out of it. You distract yourself. You breathe deeply. You tell yourself it's going to be okay. And sometimes these things work, at least temporarily. But then the anxiety comes back. Maybe not immediately, maybe not about the same thing, but it returns. And each time it returns, you're right back at the beginning, reaching for another tool, another technique, another way to make it stop. What I want to explore with you today is something radically different. It's not a technique. It's not a practice. It's not something you do. It's a realization, a shift in understanding that happens silently, internally, without any effort or force. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like one of those optical illusions where once someone points out what you're supposed to see, you wonder how you ever missed it in the first place. So what is this realization? Here it is, and I want you to really let this land. The realization is this: you are not anxious. Anxiety is happening, but it's not happening to you, and it's not who you are. Let me say that again because it's so important. You are not anxious. Anxiety is an experience that's arising in your awareness, but it is not you, and it is not happening to you. It's just happening. Now, I know that might sound like semantic wordplay at first. You might be thinking, what's the difference? If anxiety is happening and I'm experiencing it, then I'm anxious. But stay with me, because this distinction, this subtle shift in perspective, is actually everything. It's the difference between being trapped in anxiety and being free from it, even while the sensations and thoughts that we label as anxiety are still present. Let's break this down. When you say I am anxious, you're creating an identity around a temporary state. You're fusing your sense of self with a collection of thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations. You're becoming anxiety. And when you become anxiety, when you identify with it so completely, then of course it feels overwhelming. Of course it feels like something you need to escape from. Because if you are anxiety, then the only way to feel better is to somehow become something else. You have to transform yourself. You have to fix yourself. You have to change who you are at a fundamental level. But what if you're not anxiety? What if anxiety is just something that's happening, like weather happening in the sky? You see, the sky doesn't become the storm. The sky remains the sky, and the storm passes through it. Clouds gather, rain falls, lightning strikes, thunder booms, and then it passes. And the sky was never threatened by the storm. The sky was never damaged by it. The sky simply allowed it to be there, and then allowed it to pass. This is the silent realization I'm pointing to. You are the space in which anxiety arises, not the anxiety itself. You are the awareness that notices anxiety, not the anxiety that's being noticed. And just like the sky doesn't need to do anything to make the storm pass, you don't need to do anything to make anxiety pass. It passes on its own because that's the nature of all experience. Everything that arises also passes away. Every thought, every feeling, every sensation, they come, they peak, and they dissolve. This is happening all the time, whether you're paying attention to it or not. But here's what we do instead. We notice anxiety arising, and immediately we contract around it. We tense up. We resist it. We start a whole mental commentary about it. Oh no, not again. Why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't be anxious right now. There's nothing to be anxious about. What's wrong with me? I need to fix this. I need to make this stop. And with each of these thoughts, with each layer of resistance and judgment, we're actually intensifying the experience. We're adding fuel to the fire. We are taking what might have been a brief wave of uncomfortable sensation and turning it into a full-blown anxiety episode that can last for hours or even days. The silent realization is that you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to resist. You don't have to fix. You don't have to explain or understand or overcome. You can simply notice that anxiety is present. You can be aware of it without becoming it. And in that simple noticing, without the layers of resistance and judgment and story, anxiety loses its power over you. Now, I want to be really clear about something, because this is where people often get confused. This is not about suppressing anxiety. It's not about pretending it's not there, or trying to rise above it, or spiritually bypass it. This is not about being detached or disconnected from your experience. It's actually the opposite. It's about being so present, so aware, so intimate with your actual experience that you can see it for what it really is, rather than what your mind says it is. When you're identified with anxiety, when you've become it, you're actually not present with your experience at all. You're lost in your thoughts about the experience. You're in your head spinning stories, making predictions, analyzing, trying to figure it out. But the actual direct experience of what we call anxiety, when you really look at it, when you really feel it without the story, what is it? It's sensations in your body, tightness in your chest, tension in your shoulders, a flutter in your stomach, a racing heartbeat. And it's thoughts, lots of rapid thoughts, usually about the future or the past, usually about something going wrong or something you need to do or something you're afraid of. That's it. That's all anxiety actually is, when you strip away the layers of interpretation and meaning. It's sensations and thoughts. And here's the thing about sensations and thoughts. They're not inherently problematic. A racing heartbeat isn't a problem. It's just your heart beating fast. Tension in your shoulders isn't a problem. It's just muscles contracting. Thoughts about the future aren't a problem. They're just mental activity. None of these things are actually threatening you. None of these things are actually hurting you. They're just happening. But we've been conditioned to interpret these experiences as dangerous, as signs that something is wrong, as problems that need to be solved. And that interpretation, that story we tell ourselves about what these sensations and thoughts mean, that's what creates the suffering. That's what turns normal human experiences into what we call anxiety disorders. The silent realization allows you to see through this. It allows you to recognize that what you've been calling anxiety, what you've been fighting against and trying to overcome, is just life happening. It's just your body responding to stimulus. It's just your mind doing what minds do. And none of it means anything about you. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're weak or damaged or incapable. It just means you're a human being having a human experience. And when you see this, when you really get this at a deep level, something shifts. Not because you've done anything to make it shift, but because you've stopped doing all the things that were keeping anxiety in place. You've stopped resisting. You've stopped fighting. You've stopped trying to be different than you are. And in that stopping, in that letting go, there's a natural ease that emerges. Not because you've earned it or achieved it or fixed yourself, but because ease is your natural state when you're not working so hard to create a different state. This is why I call it a silent realization, because it's not something you can think your way into. It's not something you can practice or cultivate or develop. It's something that you see, and in the seeing, everything changes. It's like waking up from a dream. One moment you're convinced that the dream is real, that the monsters chasing you are actually dangerous, that you need to run faster, hide better, fight harder. And then you wake up and you realize it was just a dream. The monsters weren't real. The danger wasn't real. You were safe in your bed the entire time. But here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to make anxiety go away, when you stop positioning it as the enemy, when you stop identifying with it and instead simply allow it to be present without resistance, it often does diminish or dissolve on its own. Not always immediately, not always permanently, but gradually, naturally, without force or effort. Because anxiety, like all experiences, is sustained by the energy we give it. And when we stop feeding it with our resistance, our judgment, our attempts to fix it, it naturally begins to lose its intensity. But even if it doesn't dissolve, even if the sensations and thoughts persist, you're free from it in a way that matters more than whether it's present or not. You're free from it because you're no longer imprisoned by it. You're no longer defined by it. You're no longer living your life in reaction to it. You can have anxiety present and still make choices based on your values rather than your fears. You can have anxiety present and still engage fully with your life, your relationships, your work, your creativity, because you've realized that anxiety is just weather passing through, and you are the vast, unchanging sky that holds it all. Let me share something with you that might help illustrate this. There's a metaphor I love about the ocean and the waves. If you're a wave and you identify completely as a wave, then you're terrified all the time. Because waves rise and fall, waves crash, waves disappear. From the perspective of the wave, existence is precarious and frightening. At any moment you could cease to exist. But what if you realize that you're not actually a wave? What if you realize that you're the ocean and the wave is just a temporary expression of your nature? Suddenly there's no fear. Because the ocean doesn't die when a wave crashes. The ocean continues. The ocean was never threatened. You are the ocean. Your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations, your experiences, including anxiety, these are all waves. They arise from you, they express through you, and they return to you. But they are not you. They cannot threaten your fundamental existence. They cannot damage what you truly are. This realization doesn't come from thinking about it intellectually. It comes from a direct recognition that happens when you turn your attention toward the one who is aware of all of this. When you notice anxiety, ask yourself, who is noticing this anxiety? When you observe anxious thoughts, ask yourself, who is observing these thoughts? When you feel tension in your body, ask yourself, who is feeling this tension? And what you'll find if you look sincerely is that there's an awareness present, a consciousness that is always here, always steady, always untouched by what it's aware of. That awareness is what you truly are. And anxiety is just something you're aware of. It's in you, but it's not you. Now I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, but what if my anxiety is trying to tell me something? What if it's a signal that something in my life needs to change? Shouldn't I listen to it and act on it? And this is a good question. Yes, sometimes what we call anxiety is actually our system's way of alerting us to something that needs attention. Maybe you're in a toxic relationship. Maybe your job is crushing your soul. Maybe you're not living in alignment with your values. These are legitimate concerns that deserve to be acknowledged and addressed. But here's the thing. You can address these concerns from a place of clarity and wisdom, or you can address them from a place of reactivity and panic. The silent realization I'm pointing to doesn't mean you ignore your life circumstances or stop making changes that would benefit you. It means you stop being driven by the anxiety itself. You stop making decisions just to escape the feeling. Instead, you see clearly what needs to be done and you do it from a place of groundedness rather than desperation. There's a huge difference between making changes in your life because you're running from anxiety and making changes because you're running towards something that matters to you. One is driven by fear. The other is guided by wisdom and values. And you can only access that wisdom when you're not completely identified with and overwhelmed by the anxiety itself. The silent realization creates space between you and your anxiety. And in that space, wisdom can emerge. Clarity can arise. You can see your situation more objectively. You can recognize what's actually true versus what's catastrophic thinking. You can respond to your life from a place of strength rather than react from a place of panic. This is freedom. Not freedom from ever feeling uncomfortable sensations or having worried thoughts, but freedom from being controlled by them. Freedom from living your life in service of avoiding them. Freedom from believing that your happiness depends on them going away. You realize that you can be okay, even when things feel not okay. You can be fundamentally whole even when parts of your experience are messy or uncomfortable. You can be at peace even when your thoughts are restless. And this brings me to something really important. The silent realization isn't a one-time thing. It's not like you have this insight once and then you're cured forever. It's more like a deepening, an ongoing recognition that you return to again and again. Because the mind is conditioned to identify with experience. It's been doing this your whole life. So even after you see through it, the mind will still habitually contract around uncomfortable feelings. It will still spin anxious stories. It will still try to fix and control and resist. But each time you notice this happening, you have a choice. You can get caught up in it again, lost in the identification, believing that you are the anxiety and you need to escape it. Or you can remember, you can recognize, you can have that silent moment of realization once again. Oh, this is just happening. This is just an experience arising in awareness. I am not this. I am the space in which this is happening. And each time you make this recognition, it becomes a little more natural, a little more automatic, a little more your default response. Not because you're trying to make it happen, but because you've seen the truth of it. And once you see the truth, it's hard to believe the lie with the same conviction. This is why I say freedom from anxiety starts with one silent realization. Because that first recognition, that first glimpse of your true nature as awareness itself, rather than as the experiences arising in awareness, that's the crack in the foundation of anxiety's power over you. And once that crack appears, the entire structure begins to crumble. Not all at once, not without occasionally forgetting and getting re-identified, but gradually, naturally, inevitably. You start to notice that you're not as afraid of anxiety as you used to be. You start to see that it comes and goes, and you remain. You start to recognize that you've been okay through every anxious moment you've ever had, and you'll be okay through whatever comes next. Not because you've learned to manage it better or cope with it more effectively, but because you've realized that there's nothing to manage or cope with in the first place. There's just this moment, exactly as it is, and you, as awareness, simply noticing it. This is the silent realization. This is the shift that changes everything. Not by changing your experience, but by changing your relationship to your experience, and that makes all the difference in the world. So I invite you right now, in this moment, to see if you can notice this for yourself. Don't believe what I'm saying just because I'm saying it. Look directly at your own experience. If there's anxiety present right now, notice it. What does it actually feel like when you remove the story about it? What sensations are actually present? And who is noticing these sensations? Can you find the one who is aware of this experience? And is that awareness itself anxious, or is it simply aware of what we call anxiety? Take a moment right now. Put down whatever you're doing. Close your eyes if you want to, and just notice. Notice what's here. Notice the thoughts if they're present. Notice the sensations. Notice the sounds around you. Notice your breath. And notice the noticing itself. That's you. That's what you truly are, not the anxiety, not the thoughts, not the sensations, but the awareness that knows all of this. And from that place of awareness, from that place of simply being present with what is, see if you can just let everything be exactly as it is, not trying to change it, not trying to fix it, not trying to make it better or different, just letting it be. And notice what happens when you do this. Notice if there's a subtle relaxation, a softening, a sense of relief that comes not from the anxiety going away, but from stopping the war against it. This is it. This is the silent realization. You've just experienced it, even if only for a moment. And now you know it's possible. Now you know there's another way to relate to anxiety, not as your enemy, not as your identity, but as a temporary visitor in the vast space of your awareness. A visitor that's always welcome, never a threat, and never permanent. Freedom from anxiety doesn't mean never feeling anxiety again. It means recognizing that anxiety cannot touch what you truly are. It means knowing at the deepest level that you are always okay, even when your experience is uncomfortable. It means living from the silence beneath all the noise, from the stillness beneath all the movement, from the peace that was never dependent on circumstances being a certain way. This is available to you right now. Not someday when you've meditated enough or done enough therapy or read enough books. Right now, in this moment, through one silent realization that changes everything.